I know Thanksgiving's over, but Christmas isn't over, and so the problem's not completely over. But I want to give you a public service announcement today. America has a dry turkey problem. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm assuming you do because we have now all been through Thanksgiving, and I'm assuming most of our listeners celebrate Thanksgiving. Maybe that's an assumption, but we have a dry turkey problem in America, and I want to talk to you about it. I have a theory, okay? And I want you guys to know this for yourselves, but also for the future. Because I think that we, with proper education, with proper just materials and marketing, I think we can get the word out. Turkey doesn't have to be as dry as it is. Did you know that?
I don't know. I think there's a law that says it has to be that dry.
Doesn't have to be
because it
as
seems
dry
like
as it
they
is.
always are.
Because that's the thing. And let me tell you why. It happened in the 1970s. In the 1970s, they created that little pop-up thermometer that comes in every single turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I did not know it was then, but I know what you're talking about.
So since the 70s, almost every mass-produced, not from a farm, and even those ones, come with one of those shove in the turkey, pops up when it's done thermometers. Here's what's wrong with that. Those of you who know about cooking meats know that temperature is very important. That's even more important with turkey. We were actually talking about turkey earlier tonight.
Talking turkey, as they say.
We were talking turkey, gobble, gobble. We were gobbling.
Yes.
That thermometer that was created, again, think of the 70s, rules change, and it's still to this day, it pops up in between 175 and 180 degrees.
What? That's the reason?
And so a turkey breast cannot be, in order to remain juicy, it cannot be higher than 165 degrees. It needs to stop at 165 degrees. And we generally roast a turkey, most people, not everyone, roast a turkey at like 350 or 400 degrees in the oven. So that means in the hour, 45 minute, 30 minutes that you're resting it when you're done, it will raise 10 degrees from when you take it out of the oven to when you carve it. So that means most people are eating 185 to 190 degree turkey breast. If you cook a turkey breast with a probe, a thermometer in the breast, and you pull it out at 155 degrees, and you let it rest, and it reaches 165 degrees, not only is it safe, it's still juicy. It's still juicy. And I have proof of this because this year I cooked one on my smoker. I cooked a turkey on my smoker, and I cooked a very, very similar sized turkey in the oven. The oven one, because I did not have more thermometers, I went with the thermometer on the turkey, and the one on the smoker, I put the probes in. I have like probes that are built into my smoker, right? So they cooked it with the thermometer in the breast and in the thighs. And I took it off the smoker at like 157 or something because I cooked it pretty low.
Yeah.
And it rose, and that turkey was juicy.
That's great.
The one in the oven, it wasn't. It wasn't bad. The skin's always good, right? There's always like butter and grease but it wasn't juicy. Downside to the problem is it's still turkey. So juicy turkey is still turkey. Doesn't really fix the problem that we have. I mean, it fixes the dry turkey problem. Doesn't fix the problem that turkey's not the most exciting meat that we have. But all I want you to know is that we can fix this. If we just educate people, if we tell, all you got to do is get a probe that's not the one that's in the turkey and insert it in the breast meat and look at that. That's all you have to do. So I want you to remember this for Christmas. A couple days till Christmas. A lot of you guys have turkey. Maybe you're going to do the turkey breast thing. Maybe not. Maybe you're prime rib people. I don't know. I don't know what people do. Remember this for Christmas. Keep it in your pocket for next year. Turkey can be juicy.
Welcome to the Factoid Podcast. You didn't ask for it, but we're going to tell you about it anyways. I'm Payton Gessel.
And I'm Chris Humphreys.
As we get towards the end of December, I'm getting ready to host Amy's family at my house. Her parents sold their house recently, and they just bought a new one, so it was easier for us to just host this year and kind of solve that problem. We're going to decorate the house with wreaths and candles, take off work for several days, give gifts, and eat plenty of good food. And you might assume that I'm talking about celebrating Christmas. And you're right, I am. But if we lived in the Roman Empire, this would all sound very normal too. But in that scenario, we would be celebrating Saturnalia.
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 I don't know what that is.
Yes, it is a holiday. And I'll say at the top, around Christmas time every year, you'll see these articles that pop up online about Christmas's dark history of all of its pagan traditions that we do and things like that. And I've read pretty deep into this, and almost all of these are not really true from what I can tell. Like Yule, the holiday, pagan holiday of Yule gets brought up a lot as like, well, this is why we do all these things. What do you think the Yule log comes from? And I learned that the Yule log is from maybe the 1700s or so, and they just called it a Yule log because it sounded edgy. Because it's like,
Wow.
oh, we're going to pretend that we're doing this pagan thing, that it's not really. And what I also thought was interesting when I read about all of these like Christmas past things, I guess quite literally, is that Charles Dickens informed a lot of the modern Christmas traditions or even just the way that we view Christmas. I guess outside of the baby Jesus things, obviously. But when Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, he was helping to change the narrative behind how we thought about Christmas, where before that, Christmas was a lot more of a feasting holiday, like let's all go get drunk and rowdy and run around town and sing a bunch kind of stuff. And you can see some historical Britain things where that was a pretty common idea before that time. And A Christmas Carol kind of helped change that narrative to make Christmas more about being kind to others, spending time with loved ones, and thinking about your life and how you can maybe improve it. And it became a more somber holiday, I guess you could say. But if you wanted to squint and say that an ancient pagan holiday sort of looked like Christmas, it would probably be Saturnalia.
Okay.
These are mostly coincidences, but if you wanted to add some weird holiday traditions to your mishmash of existing Christmas traditions, then listen up as I tell you about Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a Roman holiday that celebrated Saturn, which was one of the Roman gods. I think the equivalent was Cronus in the Greek gods. And he was the god of many things, but specifically agriculture. That was important. And this was a celebration of the harvest, and it took place from December 17th through 23rd. Over the years, it kind of shifted a little bit. It was a smaller holiday, added a few extra days, retracted a little bit, but roughly the 17th through the 23rd. And Saturnalia enjoyed mass appeal in the empire. Many of the other holidays centered around being in a specific city on a certain day, but Saturnalia could be celebrated pretty much anywhere. And people from that time quoted saying that the week of Saturnalia was the best time of the year. And probably the biggest aspect of the festival was the idea of role reversals. The Romans were very into social status and everybody knowing their respective place in society. Amy and I just watched Gladiator 2 the other day, and this type of thing frequently got brought up. People who were slaves were getting branded so that for life they knew, everyone knows this person at one point was a slave. Or, certain people weren't allowed to talk to different kinds of people if they were in a different social class and things like that. So it was pretty wild that all of this gets removed during the week of Saturnalia. Slaves are treated well, and they're often served meals by their masters. Like the masters are waiting tables for their slaves. And normally a lot of people would wear togas when they were going out, and they would, instead of wearing togas that would kind of show their status in society, they would put on this Greek garment called a synthesis. And they were very bright colors, and they were much more comfortable and relaxed. So imagine like a Roman hoodie and sweatpants, essentially.
Nice. Colorful.
Yes. And on the first night of the celebrations, all of the different households would bake a cake and hide a coin inside of them. And whoever gets the piece with the coin in it gains the title of the King of Saturnalia for the rest of the week of their household. And this sort of reminds me of the Mardi Gras king cakes. Have you ever had one of those?
No.
Yeah, so it's the Cajun place that I love that I took you to the one time. Around Mardi Gras, they will serve this cake, and it's a very common thing in New Orleans and in Cajun areas where they have a little baby figurine. And I don't know if it's supposed to be the baby Jesus or if it's just a regular baby, but it's like a good luck thing where you bake the cake, you have the baby in it, and you get to, you might get a treat or a surprise if you get the baby in your slice of the cake. So kind of similar to this thing with the coin. But let me tell you about what being the king of Saturnalia entails.
Yes, I want to know this.
Yes. The king's responsibilities mostly included causing chaos, being funny, and coming up with dumb laws. And this was a later celebration. This would have been definitely not in the Roman Republic, but only in the Roman Empire. And I think a lot of people attribute this to a way to mock the idea of the emperors, to say like, hey, this is basically what you do all day. You come up with dumb laws and you
make us do stupid stuff.
Yes, exactly. So some of the examples of laws that you might give are things like commanding everybody to sing naked, or throwing someone in a cold bath of water, just like kind of funny little mischief making kind of things. And out in the country of the empire, not in the cities, the king would sometimes get sacrificed as an offering at the end of the end of the week. But in the big cities, this was not something they did. There were no consequences at all. So I don't know why they would do that out in the country versus the city, but I guess that was sometimes a problem of, that Saturn wanted a sacrifice, and it was the king.
So you're telling me they would actually sacrifice this king?
Allegedly. I think sometimes it would be like if the king was a slave, where, hey, we're going to treat him great, we're going to treat him equal for the week, and then we're just going to kill him.
That's very interesting.
Yes. But throughout the week, though, there were the thing that you would associate, the reason why they would say, oh, this is the fun time, is there were just endless feasts, there was parties, drinking and merriment. And Pliny the Elder, who's kind of a famous historian, he wrote that parties were so loud that he had to install soundproofing in his house to keep the noise out from all of his neighbors, because he didn't want to go and party. He wanted to sit in his house and write the whole time.
Wow.
And one of the things that he would have heard was the holiday greeting, the traditional holiday greeting of Saturnalia. Yo, Saturnalia! Which it sounds like I'm saying yo. It's I-O. EO, but apparently you're supposed to slur it together and you say, yo, Saturnalia.
Sure.
And this was often a greeting that you would say, as you saw people during the week. But also, if you had a really funny joke and you wanted to accentuate a punchline, you would tell your joke and then say, yo, Saturnalia. And
that's fun.
One of the specific days and activities in Saturnalia that I think is cool is the Sigillaria, which is where everyone exchanges gifts. But since giving an expensive gift would remind everybody of a social class and just the whole class structure we're trying to forget for the week, gifts were encouraged to be as cheap and funny as possible. And sometimes the slaves didn't have any money at all to buy anything, so their masters would give them a stipend and say, hey, go buy something a little bit here with this. But basically, the thing that arose out of this were gag gifts. The Sigillaria, it's a reference to, like, oftentimes it would be maybe a small little statue that someone would model of something that would be funny. Or, you were encouraged to give as low value of a gift as possible.
Sure.
And and by doing that, it showed that you had a strong friendship with the person that you're giving this gift to. I don't need to impress you by spending a bunch of, denarii. I think that's the currency.
Sure.
I don't have to spend a bunch of denarii on you to win you over. You just want to have a fun joke with me. I'm going to give you something that's, only sentimental value and for laughs. And in the same vein, I wanted to purchase a gag gift for you.
Oh.
But it didn't arrive in time.
Oh, no.
I wanted to reach into our closet studio and grab it, but no, it is still on its way.
That's okay.
So I will leave that for our next episode for you to find out what your Sigillaria gift is. But for now, I want to encourage you and our listeners to find your own weird Christmas adjacent traditions for the coming years. And there are plenty of things that you could borrow from Saturnalia that I think could be really good. Treating others with equality, regardless of their social status. Baking a cake for friends and maybe hiding something in it for fun. Or giving a family member the authority to enact funny laws for a week. I don't know. These all seem like fun things.
Yeah, they do.
But whatever you do, just stop before you get to the human sacrifices. Yo, Saturnalia!
So with it being December now, and so I guess for those of you listening, we're recording this in December. Wade, my son, has shifted his love for decorations from Halloween decorations to obviously Christmas decorations, which is good because we were worried he was going to get stuck on Halloween and then be like, where's all the skeletons at,
He is the most festive toddler that I know.
Yeah, he just loves Christmas. He got into the Grinch, and he loves Santa Claus, and he loves snowmen and everything that is Christmas, right?
What is he called, the Grinch again? The show?
So the new movie he calls Sleepy Grinch because the Grinch is sleeping at the beginning, and the old one he calls it the regular Grinch. So I'll be like, you want to watch a Grinch? Regular Grinch. You don't want to watch Sleepy Grinch? No, I don't like that. It's just when he doesn't want to watch it because he loves it.
Right.
But he loves Christmas. And so now that we're finally getting a little farther in and more people are decorating, there's all these inflatables around and there's lights up and there's all this stuff that he just wants to see, right? So every day when it gets dark, he'll say, Dad, it's getting really darker, meaning like, can we go see the stuff? and so like a couple blocks from our house, there's this place that's got all these inflatables. And so we go by every day. And these people who live, it's like a development. So people are probably like, who is this person, that drives by every day?
Every doorbell cam is picking you up.
And then they're like, hey, you guys got this car on your camera, like in their little neighborhood watch thing?
Yeah.
And, but we go by every day, and it's got, a huge 20-foot reindeer there, and it's got a helicopter with Santa Claus, and it has a polar bear, and it has a snowman that shivers. He goes, "A cold snowman." You know what I mean? And there's his favorite one, my favorite one, I think, is there's a Santa Claus in an outhouse, and he says, "Oh, look, it's Santa's potty." And then Santa pops in and out of the outhouse. So we always have to stop and wait for Santa to pop out.
Right.
And he just loves Christmas, and it's super fun. And I remember every Thanksgiving, my family would put up the tree maybe that day or the next day, and it was magical. Like, even though you knew it wasn't here yet, and even though it happens every year, there was just like a magical feeling about Christmas. And it's kind of cool to see Wade, who's just this 2-year-old, like it's built into everybody. Like he just thinks it is so magical. It's really, really fun to see.
Yeah.
And so obviously, along with looking at all these Christmas lights, he wants us to sing Christmas songs, right? And so he'll ask us, like, Daddy, sing Grinch. And so I'll sing, You're a Mean One, right? And we sing it, and sometimes, no, Sleepy Grinch. And then like, You're a Mean One. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
You had to change it up and whatever. And so he asked to sing for, and he said, Did Daddy sing Frosty the Snowman? Mommy sing. And so we sing it, and then he'll sing with us, and we sing all these Christmas songs. And he also went through a phase, he likes Minnie and Mickey, like every kid, and there's inflatables with Minnie and Mickey. And he'll say, Sing Mickey. And what he means, and I didn't know what he meant, so I just started singing. I just started singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" as Mickey Mouse, and then he'll say, "Oh, do Minnie, do Mickey," right? And it's not good because I can't do this. Oh, do Goofy, oh, do Donald, right? And eventually, it's like, wait, I can't do that.
I don't have the acting repertoire for this.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I just sing it right. We wish you know what I mean, whatever, right? And I do it, and he laughs, and he loves it, and he just keeps asking. But I've sang "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" so many times in my whole life, and so many times for Wade, and I always get to the part about the figgy pudding.
Yeah.
And I realized I had a very clear picture in my head of what figgy pudding was, and this is what it was. So the strawberry Jell-O in the disposable cups that have strawberries in it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's like in a pudding cup, it's strawberry Jell-O, but there's strawberries in it. In my head, and I've never had or seen or thought about figgy pudding before, like intentionally. In my head, it was like a green pudding, a green Jell-O in one of those disposable cups with fig pieces that were brown. I didn't know what color a fig was. Like I've had a fig Newton or whatever, but again, that's like,
sure.
I don't know, right? I don't know what a fig is, but in my mind, that's what it was, and I never thought about it. And then I got to thinking as I sing, I'm like, I wonder if that's what that is.
Right.
And it turns out it's not at all what it is, right?
Yeah.
And last year, I don't know if you guys remember, last Christmas we talked all about fruitcake.
Yes.
It is a adjacent to fruitcake type thing, but it is not fruitcake. It's not fruitcake at all. So it kind of led me into a relatively deep dive on figgy pudding. And it's not what I thought. In fact, it's very different than what I thought. Figgy pudding has roots that go all the way back to, some say, the 1200s.
Wow.
And its roots to Christmas are not super long after that. In fact, some of the very early recipes for it had 13 ingredients, which was represented like Jesus and his 12 disciples. It was like a very Christian thing, right, since the very beginning. And it's often referred to today as Christmas pudding or plum pudding. So if you ever see those words, it's referring to what we would consider now to be figgy pudding, even though those things are not the same thing as what figgy pudding started out as. And so society gets ideas of what something is, and we just kind of hold on to it, and we make it our own thing, right? That's kind of what they've done, even when that's not what it is, right? So that's what we've done here. And according to the History Channel, this is one of the most famous but least understood Christmas dishes of all time. History Channel also calls it a cross between, so maybe this is a way we can think about it, a cross between fruitcake and haggis set on fire.
Oh,
Yes.
I would not have guessed
Yeah,
that.
and so in case you don't know, I know you know, but in case you don't know listening, haggis is a Scottish dish made of minced sheep organs, oatmeal, suet, and spices traditionally cooked in a sheep's stomach. Okay?
Yes.
I've never had haggis. Have you ever had it?
I have, yes. I had it in Scotland.
How
Yeah.
was it?
It tasted, I think every culture has some sort of version like this. Like in Philadelphia, they have scrapple, which
Okay.
is kind of the leftover parts of a thing.
Sure.
My great uncle Skip, well, apparently, whenever he was really old, he would ask, like, I would love to just eat some pan pudding one of these days, just like I did when I was younger. In pan pudding, we looked up the recipe, and it's just leftover organs of
organs. Yeah, see?
Yeah.
And it turns out that's not too far from what figgy pudding at least started out as. Figgy pudding is, rather than the jello I had in my mind, a British bread pudding of sorts, which is steamed generally, among other ways, almost into like a cake dessert. It's not pudding. It's kind of more cakey, right? So this is more of a
Right.
fruitcake style, similar to fruitcake, but not the same because it does have dried fruits, which only sometimes are figs. In fact, most of the time they're not figs, which is funny, and has lots of alcohol. But its earliest roots were made with dried figs, dried fruit, currants, brown sugar, spices, breadcrumbs, suet, which is like, that's in haggis. It's like kidney fat, basically,
Oh.
like from sheep and cows and stuff, and lots of alcohol. And so in medieval times, they would throw all this stuff together, put it in the stomach of an animal, cook this up, and then the goal would be you can let that go for a long time, right? It's kind of like fruitcake in the way that because of the alcohol, because of the sugar, because of the fruit, it can be, when they didn't have, like back then they didn't have food storage, it kind of was a thing that this could stick around, right?
Right.
People who were gone traveling, when they came back, they could have some of this stuff. And so it's always been a thing that you could keep around, but it's always been relatively strong on the palate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As time has gone on, though, it's turned a lot more into a sweet rather than savory thing. I forgot to mention, they used to put, like, they just throw meat in there because, again, like all kind of, because they didn't have food storage, and so if they pop this in the middle of this thing that's like food safe, I guess it's like their idea of like, oh yeah, we can throw some meat in there, throw some
Man.
protein, give it some stuff, right? And so now when you make it, now when you find it, when you find recipes, when you find people who make it or places that make it, even ones that are trying to be traditional, it's generally more sweet than savory, and they almost never put meat inside anymore. Almost
Good.
never. Yeah. And it's getting harder and harder to find one that has suet in it still as well. They'll use other types of fats like,
Right.
lard or butter or whatever, right?
Right. Like, how are you going to know the difference?
Exactly.
Do you know what suet tastes
Exactly.
like?
Crisco, like they put
Yeah.
other stuff in there, right? But they don't put that in there. And the thing is, it's just getting more rare to find it like that. And I want to tell you that I really did have plans to make one of these.
Oh, man.
But I've been kind of sick lately. I just kind of lost my motivation. And then honestly, the more I learned about it, the more I was like, I don't want to eat this anyway. Even the modern, I'm not looking. So I'm just like, no. Okay,
I
right?
totally understand.
Last year was enough with the fruitcake. We ate that, and I remember thinking, this is very bad.
Yep.
And then whoever won that, I hope it's still in the vacuum seal bag on a wall somewhere because it's not
Yes.
worth eating. But we started to move away from savory meat, and we started to move it into this Christmas sweet, right? And it became more synonymous now with what we call plum pudding or Christmas pudding. And turns out plum is the word they used to use way back hundreds and hundreds of years ago for raisin, it turns out.
Oh, okay.
So plums mean raisins. So there was like raisins in there.
Interesting.
Almost always were there raisins in there. And so by the time the 16th century rolled around, we kind of had a little bit more of a solid, this is what you make. This is how you make figgy pudding. And it's because fruit became much more available. Dried fruit became much more available. And so sweet kind of started to take over a lot more things because they started to be able to get it. But also, what was called the pudding cloth was created in the 16th century. And this pudding cloth, you could kind of just throw these ingredients and wrap it in this, and it would kind of hold it all together, and you could like steam or boil or whatever, right? So this is a way to cook, basically. It's almost like a kitchen accessory.
Yeah.
So they created that then as well.
Okay.
And so it made it less important to use meaty things like stomachs of animals to cook it in, right? And suet was just kind of in there because they needed the fat, I guess. I don't know why you keep adding it. I mean, I guess in the 16th century, there's a lot. It's different.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's all the stuff that kind of led to them changing it up a little bit, getting a little more sweet. But they changed and they shifted through the years with availability, with mass production, all that different stuff. And by the 19th century, so we're getting a lot closer to now, it was basically standard that it was more like Christmas pudding, right? Sweet. And it was made generally 5 weeks before Christmas. And it included generally still suet, brown sugar, raisins, currants, candied orange peel, eggs, breadcrumbs, nutmeg, cloves, allspice, and plenty of alcohol. And then generally, from what I read, some of the experts say that you didn't always have to, but a lot of people would go back and feed it more alcohol to keep it, I guess, fresh, but also boozier. You know what I'm saying? So just kind of to make it more fun, right? Not a necessity, but a thing that a lot of people did. And they would kind of let it age for 5 weeks. Because that's part of the deal, I guess. Maybe it lets the stuff kind of sit together and meld together, and I guess it just all those spices, because that's a lot. Like, that sounds like, it doesn't sound good to me. Like, it sounds like a lot of spices that I wouldn't want in a cake. You know what I mean?
It sounds like it has flavor, but that doesn't mean it's good flavor.
Correct. It sounds more like it should be on a turkey, right? Yes. Allspice and sage. Like, I don't know. But then it would sit for 5 weeks, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But if it's made anymore, now it's bread pudding boiled in a bag with whatever fruits are around, and then you put alcohol on it, and you let it sit for a while. Still lasts a long time. Still sweet. Still a treat people want to partake in, especially anything that's got nostalgia or tradition, right? People like to do. Yep. So if that's a family thing, if you've tried it, maybe you make it a family thing. You just mentioned maybe we make traditions. Maybe for you try out one of these here figgy puddings. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I have a friend who's been getting really into making wassail every Christmas. So, which is kind of like I don't know if you know the old Christmas carol, the Here We Go, a caroling, where it was originally Here We Go, a wassailing.
Yes, I know that, yeah.
So, I mean, Drew is coming up with his old-timey Christmas traditions.
That's
and
right. And actually, you were talking about how Charles Dickens, like, basically kind of determined a little bit, like, about how people think of Christmas. Like, figgy pudding was in A Christmas Carol. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of it was a big enough part of it that, like, that's kind of how it became associated always with Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, like I said, it was before, but that was kind of like the solidifying, this is a Christmas thing.
And if a pudding needs anything, it needs a little bit of solidifying.
Exactly. And maybe, like I said, maybe I'm uncultured, maybe I'm boring, but after the fruitcake last year, I'm not dying to try this ancient treat. I'm just not. From singing this for Wade, I know, I've always known the words. I think a lot of people know the words, right? Of the song. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And then it's, bring us some figgy pudding, right? And they're asking, bring us some of this figgy pudding. Bring us some of this figgy pudding. And a cup of good cheer. And then, we won't go until we get some. You know what I mean? It's like, these people really want this figgy pudding. And it makes it sound like this great Christmas, like they're going to come out and hand you hot chocolate and a candy cane. You know what I mean? But from what I've learned about it, and from what I hope you've learned about it, from me telling you, is, for me, it's going to be a no. I'm not really interested in it. And so I had Google Gemini, which is Google's AI, write a verse that we could sing at the end of it instead of the one that is there. And it says, so spare us the figgy pudding. So spare us the figgy pudding. So spare us the figgy pudding. It's sticky and drear. So as far as I'm concerned, my Christmas won't ever involve figgy pudding. However, I will most likely still find myself singing that song just like it is for years to come.
Thank you for listening to the Factoid Podcast. If you have a factoid that you want to share with us, send us an email at whatsyours@factoidpodcast.com.
You can find us where you get your podcasts or on our website, factoidpodcast.com.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.